Shun jumps up and does battle with her while trying to undo the hypnotism. He overpowers and pins her down, but she fakes that leg shake to turn the fight in her favor. Claudia begins fighting the mind control and asks Shun to end her, but he refuses, so she does it herself. He cries while holding her body and uses his heroic skill to take her from the gates of heaven. He leaves her in the hand of the maid and joins the battle as Sophia arrives holding the thinker of Philome's father. She begins fighting Sophia but is quickly overpowered and held at her mercy, while Shun gets himself hurt in his fight. Right on time, Faye appears and saves all of them. Sophia heads to slay her, but she uses a hyper beam as a distraction so they can all escape from the ambush. We head over to our favorite mommy spider. She decides it's time to discipline her child and blast a hole through the ceiling. The other brains try to warn Komoko, but mommy have locked them inside as she goes for her problem child. Komoko walks around the world unaware of the disaster that's coming her way, until dear old mother confronts her. She sees that Spider Mommy is overpowered and runs for her life while dodging her beams. She begins to try teleportation magic as she's about to join her victims, but she escapes just in time. However, mother planned for this and sent some more family to wait for her. Komoko begins freaking out and dodges her brothers. He eats her web maker, but she frees herself and creates a poison mist to escape. They chase close behind her while she runs to the lava level, but a puppet blocks her way. It chops off her arms, then tries to divide her body while the rest are closing in. They sling webs at her, but she dodges and uses all the power she can muster to blast black magic at everything that moves to push them back, but they still advance. She causes a poison fog and decides to sacrifice her brothers so she can level up, but they grab her and begin ripping her apart to avenge their fallen, but it's revealed to be a mirage, so she takes the time to ambush them. Komoko gets grabbed by the puppet, which drops a spider body on her. She begins to get crushed, so she uses the annihilation eye on her sibling, but it's still living, so she uses her remaining eyes to defeat him and level up. She comes back into the fight energized to take out another sibling, so the puppet tries to stop her, but Komoko teleports it to a lava bath to finish it off. She decides to go through her evolution, where she obtained the skill called immortality. She hears Dee talking on the phone to congratulate her on becoming a unique species of spider. Komoko asks what happened to her, so Dee explains that the previous hero and demon lord used spatial magic to break out of their world. Then they launched a blast that destroyed the classroom while they were aiming to destroy her. She felt guilty about it, so Dee reincarnated everyone in the class with the best skills to suit their personality to survive in the new world. Komoko asks why she's a spider while most others were a human. Dee says that she's lucky because right now all her other classmates are children while she's now OP as F. She tells Komoko to continue entertaining her, then leaves. We go back over to Shun's party. They head to an old friend and ask for help, but he refuses to do so because his family would be at risk if anyone found out, so his father steps up and say he will help them if they want, and Shun accepts. Faye asks him to tell Philome to come to her, then she comes back to call Claudia. After a few minutes, they call out Shun to show him that Faye has gained a human form. He reminisces how she looks like her original body and wonders about all the others. The team arrives at the beach, where their guide explains that this is the safest way to travel. However, they may encounter water dragons along the way. They jump into the water and begin their dive, where they see a dragon and try to swim away. The dragon uses Hyper Beam, while Faye uses Mimic, which leads to an explosion that blasts them inside the labyrinth. Back with our favorite Kinslayer, we find Komoko fishing when the water dragon shows itself to her to become one of her many victims. After having the taste of blood, she remembers that she needs to massacre her family. She returns to the puppet and begins to do battle. Komoko begins losing, so she decides to drop the weight of the ocean upon her sibling to finish the fight. She returns to the peaceful life of fishing, but her magic brain comes to warn about a threat. The demon lord suddenly falls from the sky and smashes Komoko into pieces, but she continues to survive because she's immortal. Over to the heroes' party, we find them clearing out monsters from the dungeon. The guide decides that they should rest so they don't become too exhausted. He tells them about the nightmare of the labyrinth and says he was the first one to see her. He says that the nightmare is no longer here, but her children still wanders the labyrinth and warns them to not interact with them or they'll get a one-way ticket straight to the depths of hell. The party continues on their journey and encounter an earth dragon. They try their best to fight it off, but they do no damage, until Faye shows that her hands are rated E for everyone. She holds down the poor creature so the humans can jump it. Then Shun finishes off her family with a grand Racero, so they begin celebrating their victory as the Nightmare's children comes in to pay them a visit. They begin talking about reincarnations, which gets Shun's attention. They tell him that the world will soon be gone and returns to the shadows. He earns a knuckle sandwich for talking to them and apologizes to everyone for what he did. Shun reminisces about his past life before continuing his journey to the dungeon's end. Faye transforms to give them a ride and massacres some bugs to escape the cave into the outside world. Back to our favorite floating head, she catches more bodies, and begin to wonders why the demon lord would target her, and realizes that Mommy Spider called in the boss spider because she was getting out of hand. She slays enough creatures to evolve and wanders around until she encounters baby Sophia still being pursued by elves. They sneak in like thieves in the night, but begins getting sniped by our general camper from across the map. She wakes up in the morning and got murder on her mind, so she disposes of all the bandits. The villager sees her as a divine beast and brings their ill to her so she can heal them with fruit as payment. Our Komoko becomes something similar to a national treasure, but she's having a hard time adjusting to so much love. Back to our group of outcasts, they enter a teleportation circle to get into the elf village, but the guards confront them. The elf chief appears ahead of them, somehow being alive, and allows them to enter the village. Philomé carries them to the reincarnation camp where they meet their former class president, but she hates Philomé, so she leaves to go back to the village. Inside the tent, everyone begins greeting each other. It's revealed that Claudia was a boy in her past life, so the homies asks to slide through, but she rejects them. They ask the tent people of the upcoming war, but they seem to know nothing about it. They tell our party that the elves doesn't speak to them and keeps anyone from leaving the village, then go on to explain that everyone there was either kidnapped as a child or bought from their parents to be left here. We head back to our divine spider. She looks in on Mommy Spider and sees that her stats have been drastically reduced from her brains. She goes to commit parricide but get caught in a trap. She plays Step on Me Mommy, but Komoko sacrifices her legs to dodge, but she gets ahead of herself. The Great Mother gets ready to unbirth her, but the Magic Minds returns to give her all the stats her mom lost. They begin to launch countless spells at their dear mother until she lays unmoving. Then they end it by blowing her to smithereens. The brains reveals that one of them went inside the demon lord, so they salute their fallen soldier. Komoko returns to her life of luxury, but an emissary comes to arrest her for destroying the fort surrounding her dungeon, but she doesn't like his vibe, so she uses bullet seed before grabbing her food and leaving. She goes to sleep as she's attacked by assassins and decides to massacre all of them. She realizes that they were sent by the emissary, so she decides to no-scope him with her evil eyes. But because he perished in their custody, his kingdom declares war with all their allies on Sophia's kingdom, so Komoko decides that she will take responsibility and turn their enemies into XP. Back in present time, Hugo marches his army towards the elf village, while Philomé lays in her bed and reveals that when she first came to this world, she had the skill roster that allows her to see the present, past, and future of all her students. She realized that most of her children will be gone in less than 20 years, so she used telepathy to explain everything to the Chief King and decides to buy and kidnap all the children to save their lives. But because her skill condition is that she can't reveal it to students, they all started resenting her for locking them in the tent, so she questions if she was a good teacher to them. Shun begins preparing for the war and looks at the barrier surrounding the village. They test its durability and realizes that it may be indestructible. A sound suddenly begins coming from the teleportation room, so they enter to find Shinobu inside. He greets his classmates, but he's working for the demons, so they all begins to attack him, but he uses the Mirage skill to style on them. Then the ninja heads on the teleportation circle and throws up a sword before vanishing. The sword detonates and destroys the teleportation room to prevent their escape. As the barrier begins to be destroyed by the White Lady, the barrier goes down, so Hugo commands his troops to charge at the elves to begin the war. Philomé and Hugo face off against each other. She starts off by using a tornado, but he breaks out and launches a Getsuga Tensho. He reveals that he gained back his power by using his skill Greed to steal the powers of those whose lives he has taken. His teacher is horrified at what he has become as Yuri enters the fight, but Philomé takes her out, then uses her arrows to trap Hugo in a spell that will slowly take his breath away, forcing Sophia to step in and save him. Hugo goes in to finish her off, but he is stopped by Shun. They begin to clash blades, but Shun easily overpowers him and unlocks Ultra Instincts to disarm Hugo, then performs a tummy tuck to put him down. He commands Sophia to smoke them. She refuses and reveals that she was using Hugo and his army as a distraction so the demons can genocide the elves. Hugo tries to get his revenge but is slain by her commander. Shun tries to fight her but he's easily defeated and blown back. They decide to gangbang her but she still defeats and blows them away. She reveals that her master told her not to reincarnate any reincarnations so she can't get serious. Katia launches a spell to give Shun an opening to land an attack against her but she blocks it with her arm and blows him away. Faye intervenes and decides to surrender as it's revealed that they defeated her underling. Shun refuses to give up as wrath falls from the sky and defeats all of them single-handedly. Shun questions why he sided with the demons, so he begins to explain that the elves are evil but Philomé interrupts him and reminds Shun that the demons put his brother in a pack. The elves arrive on the battlefield and calls for Shun to head back, so Wrath and Sophia begins to deliver them to Elf Jesus, but they start to open portals to summon Gundams from the sky. We head back over to our favorite sociopath. She chills in the war she caused and sees a young Julius watching the battle, then decides to help them to escape their mortal vessels and ascend to a higher plane. We see the demon lord fighting an earth dragon, but she begins acting differently because Komoko's brain is inside her. The dragon teases her so she blows his mind. She begins arguing with herself as Dragon Bro comes in. He explains to her that her soul is beginning to consume Komoko's brain and fuse with it to become a new being. She looks into her mind and finds out that Komoko is in reincarnation and decides that she'll isekai her again. Dragon Bro decides to help her out by teleporting her straight to our little menace. She begins panicking and tries to teleport away, but the demon lord erected a barrier to block all complex skills. She begins using auras, but Komoko's dodge game is on point. She decides to use light magic on the demon, but she regenerates almost immediately and walks through all her blasts. She punches our little spider into some soldiers, which causes her to survive the attacks by continuously leveling up. Julius suddenly steps into the fight to make it a three-way stalemate. Komoko realizes that the hero skills are super effective against the demon lord. A giant fireball forms in the sky and distracts Julius. The demon lord takes the chance to use abyss magic on Komoko to destroy both her body and soul, but she revives from an egg and explains that she gained her mother's egg-laying skill so she can be reborn at any time, making her almost unkillable. She decides to evolve in the cave and turns into an half-bustalady, half-menacing spider form. Her eggs begin to hatch, so she decides to feed them before leaving natural selection to take its toll. She looks at Sophia's kingdom and sees it on fire. The father gives the butler Sophia and asks him to protect her as they are slain. He tries to run but gets turned into a pincushion, but Sophia bites and turns him into a vampire. He begins massacring all the elves until the Elf King arrives. He commands his men to send them to heaven, so the butler prepares to sacrifice himself, but Komoko arrives just in time to save the day and heal his wounds. The Elf King gets back up and uses a skill to shut down all active abilities. He begins throwing hands with her, but her dodge game is on point. She hits him into a wall and sees that he's a Terminator. Komoko realizes that his technology is what's led to the destruction of the world. He takes out the railgun, but Komoko gets ahead of herself to give him a fisting. She begins to run away and unleashes her evil eye to bend his pure. They come to a standstill as the demon lord crashes their party and one-shot the Elf King. Then she goes over to Komoko and proposes a truce because the body brain convinced her to not smoke her real body. The demon lord decides to recruit all of them to join her on a mission to go to the demon realm and destroy the Elf King's real body to save the world, so they all agree and follow her. We head back to the present. The mechas fire upon them, but Sophia blocks it. She begins using her blood to destroy all the robots and relieve the elves of their lives. Shun goes to try and save them, but Wrath flicks him away. The elves begin to fork around so they find out if God's real. They try to attack him and gets put down, so Shun charges at him again. Wrath decides to knock him out, but the maid blocks the attack and gets hurt, so Shun uses his hero skill to revive her. This causes his taboo skill to max out and floods his mind with the secrets of the universe. He begins experiencing the world's worst headache, while Hugo takes the chance to get revenge, so Sophia puts him in a pack. Komoko arrives on the battlefield and greets her teacher to everyone's surprise, as Shun passes out. Like the video if you liked the video, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Stay swifty.